You know the drill, right? You go to the doctor, you get your cholesterol checked, and you focus on keeping that one bad number as low as you can. For decades, statins have been the #1 weapon in the fight against heart disease. But what if I told you that focusing on just that one number is kind of like trying to solve a giant jigsaw puzzle by only looking at a single piece? Well, let's dig in and uncover the hidden truth about cholesterol. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, there is no doubt that statins are lifesavers. They have dramatically lowered cholesterol and prevented countless heart attacks. But here's the paradox that keeps doctors up at night. A whole lot of people on these so-called miracle drugs are still having heart attacks and strokes. So what are we missing here? Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, we have to give credit where credit is due. The statin revolution was and is a huge deal. These pills completely change the game for heart health, giving us a powerful new way to fight back against one of the biggest killers on the planet. And look, the science on this is absolutely rock solid. We're talking about massive clinical trials with hundreds of thousands of patients, all showing the same thing again and again. When you use a statin to lower LDL, that bad cholesterol, you directly lower the risk of heart attack and stroke. This powerful link became the absolute bedrock of modern cardiology. But as you've probably guessed, this story doesn't end there. Even with all the success of statins, there was this nagging question that just wouldn't go away. Why were so many patients still in danger? This is what doctors call the residual risk problem. It's that sneaky, persistent danger that's still lurking, even when your cholesterol numbers look perfect on paper. Now, this is a really important point. A patient can get their lab results back and everything looks great. Their LDL cholesterol is right in the target range, doctor gives them a thumbs up. But under the surface, the actual disease, that dangerous buildup of plaque in their arteries, can still be getting worse. That right there tells us the number isn't telling us the whole story. Not even close. And this is where things get a little tricky with the stats. You hear a number like a 25 to 30% risk reduction, and that sounds amazing. But what does that actually mean for you as an individual? Well, let's say your risk of having a heart attack in the next 5 years is about 4%. A 25% reduction of that 4% risk brings it down to 3%. See? The absolute drop is only 1 percentage point. And it's in that gap between the big flashy relative number and the smaller, more personal absolute number that this residual risk lives. So to put it another way, for every 100 people who take a statin for 5 years, about 3 of them will be saved from having a heart attack or a stroke. Now, that's 3 lives saved. That is absolutely incredible, and it's worth it. But it also means that for the other 97 people, a lot of risk is still on the table. We have to be able to do better. So if the total amount of cholesterol isn't the whole story, then what is? Well, it turns out the answer isn't in the quantity of cholesterol, but in the quality. Specifically, the quality of the tiny particles that carry it around in your blood. And this brings us to a really key concept. It's called atherogenic dyslipidemia. I know, it's a mouthful, but all it really means is having the wrong type of cholesterol particles. Think of it like this. Not all LDL particles are the same. Some are big and fluffy and they kind of bounce harmlessly along, but others are small, dense, and hard. And those are the real troublemakers. They're the ones that can easily burrow into your artery walls and start building up that dangerous plaque. This is the absolute key distinction we've been talking about. On one side, you've got LDL-C. That's the standard test, the concentration, the number we all know. But on the other side, you have the biology of the LDL particles themselves. And here's the kicker. You can have a low LDL-C number, a good number. But if you have a ton of those nasty little small, dense particles, you are still at very high risk. And the science is totally clear on this. Study after study in top-tier medical journals has shown that the number of those small, dense LDL particles is a much, much better predictor of heart disease risk than just the total amount of LDL cholesterol. This means you could have 2 people with the exact same LDL-T number on paper, but their actual risk could be worlds apart. This quote from a major cardiology journal just nails it. It really sums up this whole new way of thinking. Risk is driven by the type of particles you have, their size, their shape, not just by the total cholesterol number. This is a fundamental shift in how we need to think about heart disease risk. Okay, so if the standard cholesterol test is giving us an incomplete picture, how do we get a clearer view? Well, the answer lies in new diagnostic tools that literally let us see what was invisible before.
This exact need for a better, more accurate test is why new technologies like Callisto BioMed's lipospec platform were developed in the first place. The whole goal of this kind of advanced testing is to finally look past that simple, single number and get to the real, underlying biology of a person's risk.
So, how does this stuff even work? Well, think of it this way. A standard cholesterol test is like looking at a huge crowd of people from a helicopter. You can kind of tell how many people are there, but you have no idea who might be a troublemaker. Advanced lipoprotein testing is like having a pair of high-powered binoculars. It lets you zoom right in, see each individual particle, and pick out the dangerous ones that are most likely to cause a problem. So let's just break it down nice and simple. Step 1, you get your standard lipid panel, which gives you that one LDL number we're all so familiar with. Step 2 is where the magic happens. An analysis like lipospec goes way deeper, measuring the actual particle biology. And then step 3, it's the big reveal. A hidden risk profile that was totally invisible before is finally brought into the light. So what does all this mean for the future? Well, it signals a really big shift away from a one-size-fits-all approach to heart health and toward a much more personalized, biology-driven way of caring for patients. And let me be absolutely crystal clear about something. This is not an argument against statins. Statins are fantastic, and they'll continue to be a cornerstone of cardiovascular care. This is about adding a new layer of precision. It's a more powerful diagnostic tool that helps doctors find and treat the patients who might otherwise fall right through the cracks of the current system. You know, for years, top cardiologists and researchers have known about the limitations of the standard cholesterol test. The science was there. They knew what was going on. But what was missing was a practical, widespread way to actually measure it. Now, with the arrival of advanced lipoprotein testing, we finally have the tools to put all that knowledge into practice and close the gap between what we know and what we can do. So the next time you get your labs back and you look at your cholesterol number, just remember, there's probably a whole lot more to this story. And now that you're armed with this knowledge, you can have a much more informed conversation with your doctor about what your true cardiovascular risk really is. After all, when it comes to your health, you deserve to see the whole picture.